evening, everybody. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome Remco Bromett to lead us in an invocation.
I'm pinch praying for Pastor Jeff Kane of C3 Church, who could not be with us tonight. So let's pray together. Our Father in heaven, we come to you in the knowledge that you are a very personal God and never far away from us. You know our thoughts, you know our hopes, you know our dreams, and despite all of our weaknesses, you are an ever-present help in time of need for those who call on you. And we call on you tonight on behalf of our mayor and city council and city staff gathered here tonight to give them your wisdom, to give them insight and hindsight and foresight, to make wise decisions on behalf of this city, to be one in mind and purpose. We also pray for those who serve our city in various capacities, our city staff, our police officers, our firefighters, and we pray particularly that you would be with those who are struggling tonight, perhaps with health issues or personal problems or family issues. Be near them, be their comfort and their strength. And pour out your blessing upon this city. Protect all of its inhabitants from evil or anything else that would disrupt their lives and tear them down. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, March 16th, 2015 to order. If our city clerk would please call the roll and make general announcements.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the March 16th, 2015 regular meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Those attending the meeting who would like to provide public comment either during the public hearing or during the call for public comment, you're required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on an item. There is no public comment for consent agenda items or items under first presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards were received by the city clerk prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization if applicable. The City Council may allow public comment on either an agenda item or general public comment from a representative of such an organized group or association, provided that such an individual shall file a notarized affidavit that they have the authority to speak on behalf of said organization on a form provided by the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outbursts, or dialogue with any person speaking. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you will expect to receive yourself. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Thurman.
Here.
Councilmember Matt Kuntz. Here. Councilmember Bill Lusk.
Here.
Councilmember Bert Hewitt.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Longoria is not present for the record. And Councilmember Rick Morick.
Here.
Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Okay, before we start, I was going to ask, and notice we had a few football players here. I wanted to see if they wanted to come up with us and help us lead the pledge. But we may have too many of you guys. But anyway, so welcome here tonight, and will lead us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, welcome here tonight to our City Council meeting, and we're glad you're here, and look forward to doing the business of the city. City, will you please sign our first item?
Our first item this evening is approval of the meeting agenda. This is agenda item number 15-062.
Okay. Do I have any items? I know we need to add an executive session to discuss land acquisition. Do we have any other items that may or may not want to be added to our agenda from council? Staff?
Mr. Mayor, I've got a couple of recommendations tonight.
The first is that under new business that we remove item number 6, which is consideration of a resolution supporting an application to the Atlanta Regional Commission for funding of a Northeast Crabapple Connector project. That's agenda item 15077. We'd like to consider it in a different funding cycle. As well as under new business as item number 10, add a consideration of a resolution of the City of Milton, Georgia, enacting an emergency moratorium for 30 days to bar the acceptance of applications for land disturbance permits on property in the AG1, R1, R2, R2A, R3, R3A, R4, R4A, and T2 zoning districts.
Okay. Anything else? All right. I'll open up for a motion on the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as modified by staff with the addition of the executive session for land acquisition.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Councilmember Hewitt, second from Councilmember Morgan. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous, Sudie. Okay, next item is public comment. Do we have any general public comment?
We do not, sir.
Okay, and we'll move on then to our consent agenda, if you wouldn't mind reading the consent agenda.
Our first item is approval of the February 9th, 2015 City Council Work Session Minutes, agenda item number 15063. Next is approval of the February 18th, 2015 City Council Regular Minutes, agenda item number 15064. Third, approval of a contract renewal between the City of Milton and AT&T for telephone services at City Hall, agenda item number 15065. And next, number 4, is approval of the acquisition of 121.63 square feet of right-of-way, 449.00 square feet of construction and maintenance easement, and 2,251.65 square feet of construction easement at 2425 Birmingham Road from Bruce and Susan Smitherman for a combined purchase price of $11,792. Agenda item number 15066. Next, approval of the acquisition of 109.19 square feet of right-of-way and 332.70 square feet of construction and maintenance easement at 15694 Hopewell Road from Brian and Julie Phillips for a combined purchase price of $3,611. Agenda item number 15067. Our sixth consent agenda item, approval of the acquisition of 0.015 acres of right-of-way and 0.249 acres of construction and maintenance easement at 12624 Broadwell Road for a combined purchase price of $94,075. Agenda item number 15068. Next, approval of the acquisition of 0.011 acres of right-of-way and 0.020 acres of construction and maintenance easement at 12580 Crabapple Chase Drive from Crabapple Chase Homeowners Association, Inc., for a combined purchase price of $35,575. Agenda item number 15069. Our eighth consent agenda item is approval of the acquisition of 49.40 square feet of right-of-way and 337.88 square feet of construction and maintenance easement at 15708 Hopewell Road from Kevin and Catherine Scott for a combined purchase price of $3,665. Agenda item number 15070. Next, approval of the acquisition of 80.57 square feet of right-of-way and 269.36 square feet of construction and maintenance easement at 15698 Hopewell Road from Hendricks Homes for a combined purchase price of $4,500. Agenda item number 15071. And our 10th and final consent agenda item this evening is approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Moreland Altabelli Associates, Inc. for final design for 2 Birmingham Road bridges, Chicken Creek tributaries 7 and 9. Agenda item number 15072.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to approve the consent agenda as prepared by staff.
Second.
Have a motion from Councilmember Luss, second from Councilmember Kuntz. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, our next item is reports and presentations. Sudi, if you'll please call the first item.
This item is a proclamation recognizing Old Blind Dog. This is being presented by Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have a proclamation for the Old Blind Dog Irish Pub, which was recently named 2015 Irish Pub of the Year. We're very proud they were recognized for what we've known for a long time, the best Irish pub in the world, and we're glad they call Milton home. After I read the proclamation, then I'll ask any representatives, including Jeff here from Old Blind Dog, to step forward and we'll present it. I have a proclamation here recognizing the Old Blind Dog. Whereas the Old Blind Dog Irish Pub has served the residents of Milton since 2009 as a great landmark and local institution, and whereas the Old Blind Dog Irish Pub has established itself as a valuable part of the community, partnering with local groups and nonprofits to continue to develop and grow Milton's truly unique hometown feel, and whereas the Old Blind Dog Irish Pub is named after one of Milton's former canine residents, Peaches, who was in fact blind in one eye and often told, "Come on, you old blind dog, let's go to bed." And whereas Old Blind Dog Irish Pub was founded with the dream of offering the warm, friendly, and authentic Irish pub experience to Milton residents, and whereas the Old Blind Dog Irish Pub has earned the outstanding accomplishment of being named 2015 Irish Pub of the Year by the Irish Pubs Global Federation, and whereas Old Blind Dog Irish Pub is the first American pub to win this award, given for authenticity, ambiance, market position, and online customer ratings. Now, therefore, we, the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Milton, hereby dedicate Monday, March 16th, 2015, as Old Blind Dog Day in the City of Milton, and this is given under my hand and the seal of the City of Milton, Georgia, on the 16th day of March 2015. So now I'd like to present this, and if my council will join me and those representing Old Blind Dog, if you'd step forward. Now, Jeff, if we can just get everybody that's here of age to go to the Old Blind Dog afterwards, they're probably going to want a beer.
Or tomorrow, St. Patrick's Day celebration.
Okay, we have no items on first presentation, so we'll move to our public hearing. Will the city clerk please sound the item?
First item is consideration of the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to Spice Afro Caribbean Cuisine, LLC, located at 13695 Highway 9 North, Suite 103 and 104, Milton, Georgia, 3004. Agenda item number 15073. Ms. Stacy Inglis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is not necessarily a new establishment. It's been there for a little while. I don't know if you know exactly where this location is. It's by the C3 Church and also the what's the name of the restaurant? Yes. So they are wanting to add wine and malt beverages to their offerings to the public, and they have followed all of the requirements of the city to get this type of license, and staff recommends approval.
Does anybody have any questions for staff on this? If not, I'll open up for a motion for approval or denial.
Make a motion to approve agenda item 15-073.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion from Councilmember Hewitt, second from Councilmember Morag for approval. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Now, I did, do we have any public comment on
We
this?
do not, sir.
Because I did not close the public hearing. Ken, do I need to close the public hearing and then vote again, or? Yes. Okay. Right. I apologize. So I have no comments on this, so I'll close the public hearing, and now I'll open up again for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item 15073.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous again. Okay, we don't have anything, items on our under zoning agenda tonight, so we'll move on to unfinished business. Sudie, if you'll please call the items.
First item is consideration of an ordinance to amend Chapter 4, alcoholic beverages, agenda item number 15054, discussed at the December 8th, 2014 and February 9th, 2015 City Council work sessions. First presentation was heard at the March 2nd, 2015 regular City Council meeting. Ms. Stacy Inglis.
So I can go through and highlight some of the changes that we made, but we've discussed everything so far. There's one change that I needed to make to what has been in the packet, and that is under the special event permit section. I want to include the the word pouring in between special event and permit. So it'd be special event pouring permit. And that also applies to the Appendix A fees and schedules too. When we get to that, I'll talk about that. But we have a pretty big audience here tonight, and I'll probably spare you, again, listening to this unless you want me to go over a few things.
Well, let me open up just for, because this is important. So does council have any specific questions or another overview, or what's y'all's thoughts?
I don't have my notes from our discussion there. Do you have your notes from our discussion and what had been discussed during our work session?
I didn't bring them in with me, but I know that some of the things that we discussed were, I believe it dealt with some of the definitions. We cleared some of those up. We also included, sorry, I didn't bring any of those notes with me, Bill.
Stacy, with the changes, does it allow, under this ordinance then, the ability to, like, on a patio area?
That's what it was. Yes, it does. We did find something. Sorry.
I know that was one of the big changes.
It was one of
we
the
made.
things, and we have it under the sales for consumption on premises. Trying not to lose my voice. Here it is. It's section 4-238 on page number 26, and it will allow sales outside of the establishment in unenclosed spaces. So it no longer has to be enclosed. In open areas, sidewalks, decks, patios, or similar spaces on or about the premises of an established establishment licensed to sell alcoholic beverages. So it allows any establishment that has a consumption on premises permit to be able to serve on their sidewalks like you requested. And this is formatted probably pretty much close to what Alpharetta has in their ordinance.
I will tell you that at the Crabapple Community Association meeting last Thursday when Bert and Matt and I were there, I did mention it and passed out the map that you provided, and they were all very, very excited to have the Crabapple district be set aside and be able to allow carry things from one location to another. So
Good.
they were all very much in support of it.
Good.
Matt?
Yeah, I would just concur with that. I mean, obviously, our businesses down there want to compete with what Roswell and Alpharetta are doing, and I know this has been a long process for you and going through a lot of different texts, and I just want to say you did a great job from what I can see. And obviously, as we find out what our area is, if there's anything we need to adjust in the future, I'm amenable to it. But right now, I like it as it is, and I think I'm willing to give it a shot with as we put together over this period of time.
Very good.
So.
Okay. Bill?
I know one question I did have last week.
Okay.
And for the open area patio sales regulation, we talked about a barrier of some sort.
Right.
Could you point that out to me?
Well, Section 4-238, it used to have a barrier in there, and now we have removed the barrier. That's what unenclosed spaces means. So we've removed the requirement for a barrier.
Okay.
So you could have a table
Out
set
on the
just outside the
sidewalk.
establishment, they can still serve with their glasses versus falling under the carry where they have to have a designated plastic cup.
Correct.
Okay,
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
yeah, that looks good.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, then I'll open this one up for a motion for approval, or,
Close the public hearing.
Mayor?
you know what, hold on one second. I don't know that this is under a hearing.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
It's just an ordinance.
open it up. Motion?
Mayor, I'll move to approve an ordinance to amend Chapter 4, alcoholic beverages, agenda item number 15054, and I guess it's also to include the revisions in hard copy that you handed out prior to the meeting.
Yes, thank you.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion for approval from Councilmember Lusk and a second from Councilmember Coos. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimous, Sudi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Okay, Sudi, if you'll please call the next item.
Next item is consideration of an ordinance to amend Chapter 34, Article 2, Regulation of Public Parks, Section 34-22, Prohibited Acts, agenda item number 15055. First presentation is at the March 2nd, 2015 regular City Council meeting. Ms. Stacy Inglis.
So this next item will allow alcohol in our public parks for special events, and that is simply just adding that provision in the Parks and Rec ordinances.
Okay, I'll open up questions for Stacy or comments. Anybody? Okay. Hearing none.
No,
Karen?
one question came up at the Crabapple meeting, and it was concerning Friendship Park, and I told them because that was actually school property, I didn't think there was any way alcohol would be allowed on it for even special
It's
events.
not our park, right?
All right, I'll open up for a motion if there's no questions.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve for consideration an ordinance to amend Chapter 34, Article 2, Regulation of Public Parks, Section 34-22, Prohibited Acts, agenda item number 15-055.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Councilmember Thurman, second by Councilmember Morrig for approval. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, Sudi, if you'll please call the next item on unfinished business.
Our final unfinished business item is consideration of an ordinance to amend Appendix A, fees and other charges. Agenda item number 15056. for his presentation at the March 2nd, 2015 regular City Council meeting. Ms. Stacy Inglis.
So the Appendix A, we're just replacing the section that deals with Chapter 4, the Alcoholic Beverage Ordinance. Since it was first published, and for this particular agenda, I've had to change a few things. One was add pouring under special event pouring permit. I also noticed an error where it said referenced Section 4-49 for brew pub and private clubs, special events facilities, and farm winery consumption on premises. It should have said 4-47. So I've corrected that. You should have a hard copy in front of you. I also had to add a few more fees that I missed the first time around, pouring permits and the pouring permit replacement fees, as well as penalties for failure to file return and failure to pay the taxes and things like that. It was included in the current Appendix A that we currently have, and I had to do this whenever we had we closed early for the weather event, and the kids were running around, and I just missed it. I'm terribly sorry, but I caught it this afternoon, so hopefully everything should be included now.
Okay. Do you have any, Bill?
Items 4-1, 2, 3, they're all entitled B, I guess. There are 3 items there for penalty for sale to underage persons, and lists the 3 levels of offense. And I guess my question is, how does that compare with typical jurisdictions around the area? And I guess the second part of that question is there an ultimate penalty where a license is revoked after so many infractions?
I copied this directly from Forsyth County, so this should look very familiar to Ken. And I saw it was all over the board as far as what I saw from other jurisdictions. I believe it's just up to the jurisdiction itself as to set those limitations.
Okay, I noticed that there was an establishment in Forsyth County right off of exit on 400 that had been cited several times, and I believe they revoked their license.
That's right. That occurred fairly recently, actually. Right. Just to articulate a little further what Stacy was saying is, you're setting the fines here, but remember, with respect to the administrative sanction, with respect to the license, that's going to come back to you all with respect to your determination on whether or not to pull this. So this is more of the city code. This is sort of the express penalty of the fine, but with respect to yanking the license, that's still going to be within the discretion of the council.
So that would involve one of us making the motion to bring them forward for a violation.
No, they'll come before you, but it's really just a matter of whether or not you think the violation is egregious enough that they can't be trusted with that license any longer.
So on the penalty of their fine for serving an underage person, that automatically involves them coming back before council?
There is written in there right now that is a mandatory hearing before the council.
So each time the offense would happen, they would come forward in addition to the fine?
That's right.
Right.
Okay.
And I hope you don't get better at it, but you may get better at it.
No room for improvement.
Okay. Anything else? All right, I'll open up for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve agenda item number 15-056.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Kuntz for approval, seconded by Councilmember Hewitt. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that's right. To the extent that there's something different in your packet, would you, in the motion, would the maker of the motion agree that they are referencing what was handed out? If you could just acknowledge that was what you intended.
I will acknowledge that was what I
Does
intended.
that consist of the second agrees?
The second.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay. Sudi, if we can move to new business, if you'll call the item.
First item is consideration of amendments to the Personnel Policy Handbook to modify the City of Milton policies regarding social media policy. Agenda item number 15046. This was deferred at the February 18th, 2015 regular council meeting. Mr. Ken Gerard.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you very much. You may recall that we had a excellent discussion on this at the last work session where we went through, I thought, fairly intensively the social media policy with the pervasiveness of social media. I think you heard me say that I was very pleased that the City of Milton is really taking the lead on trying to provide some nice and clear guidance, not only for its employees but also for its appointed board members. We had a spirited discussion about that and all of the requirements with respect to the First Amendment that are necessarily at play whenever you're talking about government regulations on how people can speak. And we heard all of your comments and went back and tried to make some modifications with respect to that. So if you will allow me, I think the changes are fairly narrow, but I'll go through them. The biggest takeaway, I think, was that the council wanted guidance and clarity that these policies with respect to both the use of Milton-generated social media, of course Milton has a significant social media presence, those seem to be pretty good. I'm very comfortable with those. I think where we got into some questions was on personal social media. Most folks on social media, they put a little bit of information around them about themselves to include who they work for or perhaps who they serve in your instance. And so we tried to make sure that it was clear that this policy with respect to particularly you as elected officials would not have application in limiting your ability to speak on matters of interest to the city. That is, after all, what you do. You are city elected officials. It is assumed you're going to speak on issues that impact the city. Whereas we did try to provide some clarity with respect to non-elected officials if you're speaking on matters involving the city, that you make clear and continue to make clear you're not speaking on behalf of the jurisdiction. We tried to do that. You'll see that, by the way, on page 4 at the top, where we put that some of the guidelines with respect to use of personal social media do apply to elected officials, but for instance in section 3, where it goes through and lists some of the really egregious, very frowned upon, in fact not even protected by First Amendment protections like libelous speech, defamation, obscenity, etc., those would apply to you. And I remember at the work session, no one here really had a concern with that. You're fine. Please let us be subject to those kinds of restrictions. However, when you get into the ability to simply comment on city issues, you wanted the right to do that and not have to put a 4-paragraph disclaimer into the post. That's in there as well. That will not apply to you. You're going to be able to speak on matters of city interest without having to put any sort of disclaimer. Candidly, that was, I think, the biggest concern you all had. I think we tried to address that head on, and hopefully we brought back something y'all would feel comfortable about approving. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Does council have any comments or questions on these changes and the policy itself?
I guess
Yeah.
just one, Ken. So I'm just trying to picture what would happen if in the future some council person were to say something according to any of these items in section 3. What's then that process by which the council person then would be removed? Is that the rest of the council's vote or what?
Well, yeah, again, it's not like that there's going to be some sort of a formal disciplinary action like in a pure personnel sense against a sitting city council member. It would probably start by way of perhaps maybe even as limited as a private discussion, followed if the behavior continues. It might, in fact, result in maybe even a reprimand or maybe a vote of censure by the council against one of its members. That's why you have policy. That would be an excellent basis to have a vote of censure, particularly if a member is using social media in violation of Section 3 in a way that brings disrepute or denigration on the council. That would probably be the next step. If it gets much beyond that, then I would counsel with you offline on what the protocols would be. I hope and I have every expectation it would never get that far.
But that would be brought forward by council, though,
That's
not
right.
from staff.
That's correct.
Basically what I was
That's right.
making sure.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll open this one up for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve agenda item number 15-046.
I'll second it.
Okay, got a motion from Councilmember Kuntz, second from Councilmember Thurman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, thank you, Ken. Thank you, everybody else who worked on that. Sudie, if you'll please call the next item.
Our next item is consideration providing future direction for the Milton Youth Tackle Football Program. Agenda item number 15060. This was deferred at the March 2nd, 2015 regular City Council meeting. Mr. Jim Craig.
Okay, let me ask you before Mr. Craig speaks, do we have any public comment on this?
Yes, sir. We have 6 public comments.
Jim, Chris, would you, staff, be okay if we took public comment first before the presentation, just in case that would be a question that might be answered or whatever?
Absolutely.
You okay with that,
Yes.
Council? Okay, Sudie, if you don't mind calling the public.
Our first comment comes from Mr. Matt Dawson.
Hello. Matt Dawson, 1530 Hamiota Ridge, Milton, Georgia, 30004. So thank you again for having the opportunity to talk. First, I want to say thank you to those of you on the council that we had the opportunity to talk with a little more detail about our program, Newfound Life Youth Football League. So I just wanted to kind of summarize a little bit of what we talked about, and just to make sure that, I just want to talk a little bit about, address some of the issues that may have come up and some of the conversations that we had, just so we make sure that we're all on the same page. But the first thing I want to make sure you hear is the mission of our program, which is develop a total person, spirit, mind, body, through character development programs that build strong kids, strong families, and strong communities. Everything that we do, it's not just about football. It's about growing good people, good teammates, and obviously good football players within our community. Our program is ready to grow. We started out small. We understand that. And as we've gone through this process, we've been forced to look at ourselves and say, what do we need to do to be able to support the growth that we expect that's coming? Because we know it's coming. We expect to at least double the number of tackle participants that we have in our program, and that just continues a trend that's been going on for the last 2 years through the growth strategy that we've employed. We reorganized our board. We have a strong board now with multiple folks, volunteers in the area, and again, we're ready to support the growth that we expect that's coming. The biggest thing that we're asking for is space. As you know, what we have at this point in time, we have 30 yards of grass in front of Milton High School to support all of our programming. That includes both the tackle and the flag programs. And that's kind of, at the end of the day, when it all boils down, that's kind of what we're talking about. And I understand, I think this is actually a pretty good indication where, there's a lot of people, but there's also one program already has an agreement with Alpharetta. They already have access to not only the space at North Park, the 2 fields there, but also additional space within North Park, Wills Park, and other parks within the Alpharetta system. We don't have that kind of agreement. So, when we're talking about, if we're not the provider, or is that going to kill the program? No, it just makes our jobs a lot harder. And really, what we want to make sure that we're focusing on is that, we think that the approach that we're taking is a little bit different. We're not saying one's better than the other. It's just a little bit different. And we think that the opportunities that we're providing for the kids in the Milton Alpharetta area are a little bit different. And we think that the idea of competition is actually a good thing. And that, the reason that everybody's here today is because people feel like there's a little competition going on. And a lot of the stuff that you're going to hear, a lot of the changes in the programs are directly related to people knowing that there's a competitor in the area. I mean, a good example to me, if you think about all the programming that Milton provides, Hopewell Baseball is a great example. In 1995, Hopewell Baseball had 125 participants, where Alpharetta had, at Wills Park, had about 800, maybe 1,000. At one of the other parks, they had maybe 400 or 500 kids. You know, if we were talking about the same kind of thing way back then, you know, just based on numbers, Hopewell would be part of whatever was going on in Alpharetta. But that didn't happen. There was another option for the people in the city of Milton to bring their kids and do it a little bit different. It's still baseball, but it's different than what goes on in Alpharetta. And I think that's what we're talking about. At the end of the day, all we're asking for is an opportunity to help us grow our program and to continue to support the city of Milton and continue to grow through our involvement within the schools and in the area, and continue to push that agenda so that we can continue to grow and serve the growing population. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just interject real quick. We didn't on the first one, and that was start a timer.
I think
That
we have
was well
we
within
have
the
total.
reason.
We don't have a total for 5 or 5 minutes.
5 minutes per person.
Per person,
So
yeah.
we'll,
So
that
I
one
think-
was, I think, within the 5
Yeah,
minute
that, I believe so
deadline.
too.
So
So
we'll
if you just run the clock.
keep the
for
time from this point
For
forward.
the next folks. Could you please call the next person?
Our next speaker is Scott Stakowski.
Scott Stahusky, 3154 Chippingwood Court. Mayor, Council, I just want to let you know that as Vice Chair of the Football Committee and a representative of the Parks and Rec Board tonight, that we're here to answer any questions and help you in your deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Sudi, if you'll call the next speaker.
Our next speaker is Mr. Tim Lester.
Good afternoon. Well, see, I've been in this place the last couple of months.
Can you state your name,
My name
please,
is
and address?
Tim Lester, 1160 Bream Drive, Milton, Georgia. Well, it seems like I've been spending a lot of time up here in the city council. And I just wanted to address some questions that I was asked by the council. And, you know, I talked to Joe on the phone, and one of the things you said was like, what would happen if we didn't do anything with football? Well, it wouldn't hurt Alpharetta. It wouldn't hurt North Atlanta Giants or NAFA because they have 2 turf fields at North Park and grass practice field at Wills Park to practice and play in the city of Alpharetta. But it would hurt us because of now we only have 30 yards to practice in. We need space to grow. A Milton grassroots football program. Because we are Milton, we are not Alpharetta, we are not Roswell, we are not Forsyth, we are not NAFL, we are not North Atlanta Giants Division I program that practices at North Park. We are Milton. Bill, you asked me a question, and the question was, is it just you? And I must say, no, it's not just me. I'm the leader, and I do go out there on my own sometimes making waves, but I have a great support group. You can look at the people in this room, and you can see I got a lot of support. You also said, where's your business plan? And my business plan has always been in my mind. You know, as a leader, I will always keep God first. I will focus on empowering the city of Milton's youth through NFL Play 60 by speaking in schools during Red Ribbon Week, Career Day, Field Day, and year-round training on Sundays through NFL Play 60. I will inspire them to avoid alcohol. I will inspire them to avoid drugs. I will inspire them, the Milton Steelers, football and cheerleaders, to stand up against bullying in schools. How will I inspire them? I will inspire our kids by sharing my personal journey in life. Bert, you asked me one question, and it was kind of tough. You said, how do you compete against 40 years of experience? I can't. I can't compete against 40 years. But I know this. If I put the right people around me, I can level the playing field if given the opportunity. Matt, you were all about developing the kids for Milton. And that was my plan from the beginning, to focus on our kids in our schools to develop them. Another request was the branding, the city of Milton through football. We don't have a football program. Alpharetta does, Roswell does, but Milton doesn't. A year ago, I started branding the name of Milton Steelers by competing as the Milton Steelers.
Mr. Lester, 2 minutes remaining.
Our Milton Steelers were one game away from the championship game. All first-year players, with the exceptions of 4 players. Our Milton Steelers competed in the Turkey Bowl in November against Alpharetta third-grade All-Stars. Milton Steelers won that game by 4 touchdowns. The head coach from AYFA All-Stars was upset over the outcome of the game, so he was ejected from the game. As he was leaving the field, he screamed, "You and your travel team need to go back home." I said to him, "Yes, me and my travel team travel all the way from Milton. We recruit in the city of Milton. We are Milton." Thank you.
Sudi. Okay, Sudi, if you please call the next.
Our next speaker
person.
is Jerome Bettis.
How you doing? Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Jerome Bettis, Hall of Fame running back from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I wanted
Bettis,
to...
do you mind just for the record?
Yes, sir.
Stating your address along with, you did your name, but.
I'm sorry,
your address.
1651 Randall Mill.
Thank you.
I'm here today to speak to Tim Lester's credibility and character. I've known Tim Lester for over 20 years, and I understand his commitment and what it is to Milton, because he is on numerous occasions asked me to come to his camps during the summer with kids from Milton at Milton High School and work the camp with him to try to help the kids from his community. I've done that on numerous occasions. And speaking to this football opportunity that's in front of all of you, Tim Lester has been diligent about everything that he's done. He's enlisted me to help with branding, with fundraising opportunities, and much more. So he's going to all of his resources to make sure that this program can be a success. And when you speak to a successful program, which is what Tim is competing with 40 years of experience, it took someone 40 years ago to give that program a chance. And here is a chance that Milton has to create a similar situation with kids in Milton, that you can provide them with the necessary fields. And what you always have to understand is the kids in Milton, they don't need the handout. They just need a hand up. They just need an opportunity to establish themselves. And 40 years from now, you'll be proud of what you created. Thanks.
Thank you. Sudi, if you guys would please hold your applause till the end of the comment if you have any, but the comments. Sudi, do you have another comment?
Our next speaker is Aaron Hansen.
Erin Hansen, 340 Hurstbourne Lane, Johns Creek. I am the owner and inventor of a product called Guardian Caps. We are a science and technology company, the Hansen Group, that's been in business for about 20 years, doing material engineering and science. We do development and technology work for everything from the Atlas V booster rockets to golf balls to mine liners, you name it. And about 4 years ago, we have 5 children of our own. A company came to us to ask us to solve the football problem that they saw brewing. And it was something that we started as a passion business. And it's just nothing more than a soft shell that covers a football helmet, retrofits any helmet, and takes about 1/3 of the impact off of these kids' heads, especially at the youth level when they're disproportionately head heavy. It's really important. You know, they're hitting thighs, they're hitting elbows, they're hitting hands, they're hitting the ground, they're hitting head to head. It's a safety product that we're really proud of. We've got about 35,000 of them out there now. We've got Clemson University, Oklahoma, Georgia State, Cincinnati, Syracuse. A lot of schools and big guys are seeing the difference that it makes. Guys like Tim Lester and Jerome Bettis, who played the game at such a high level, know the repercussions that come when you don't have the right equipment in place. And I commend them because we've done a great job of marketing to the big guys. We've done a pretty good job of marketing to the high schools, but the one area we can't reach is what we started out to reach, which is the youth. And they're fractured all over the United States. There's no one way to reach all of them. And they sought us out, which is pretty remarkable. You know, they could put their time and energy into better looking decals and really cool jerseys that cost $70, and they wanted to make sure that safety was the premier part of their program and that they were responsible for the lives of the kids that the parents put in their hands. And Tim very, very, very passionately talked about the difference it had made to his son and how he wanted to make sure that all of the children in his care had access to what he felt was the best equipment. And that really spoke to me because, you know, we go out there, and I'll be honest with you, we had a lot of guys who talked about how they got their bell rung, and, you know, it's part of the game, and it's a tough game, and you got hit. But I'm telling you, as a mama, you start when they're 2 years old, and you say, don't hit your head, don't hit your head, don't hit your head, and then suddenly, you know, they're of a certain age, and you strap a helmet on them, and you tell them to go hit their head. And so Tim understands what that means and how important technique and equipment and all of that is. So he's involved in all of those things to make sure that those kids in his care are being addressed. And I just wanted to commend him for that.
Thank you. Okay. Sue, do we have any more public comment?
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay. We've got another one. You guys hold on.
Our next comment comes from Brent Deakins.
Hello, City Council. My name is Brent Deakins, 12965 New Providence Road in Milton, Georgia. I'm the pastor of Reach One Church, and I'm Tim's pastor. I wanted to talk just a little bit about what I see with him and his family as far as their character and their commitment to the city of Milton and the families here. I've been out to practice numerous times, even helped with some kicking and things with their players. And what I see is coaches that really care for kids. I see a commitment level, not to just football, but to the community. And something that I'm passionate about being a citizen of the city of Milton is that we're a small city, and that's good. I love that. And we're a new start city, which I really love. And I'm a part of a coalition of pastors that are trying to put together things for this city. So, for instance, we're putting together the first ever Milton Easter egg hunt. Coming up, and I'll invite you all to that. We're putting together the first ever Milton National Day of Prayer. We'll invite you to that. Every other city has their own programs, their own services, and I want to see that happen with the city of Milton. We're almost 10 years old. We're moving from infant stage into junior high age stage, and it's time to stand on our own 2 feet. And so I want to see a program like Tim Lester's program that will actually support the city for our kids, for our community, for our families, and for our parks. And so I'm just here on behalf of Tim Lester's program to say that I've seen it in action, and I want to see providers that are from the city of Milton providing for kids in the city of Milton and families in the city of Milton. And tell you that as a community member, as a pastor, and as a friend, I support this program, and I think that you guys should highly consider making this your provider for the future of the city, because we're moving to the next level as a city. We're no longer an infant level city. We're moving to where we can provide our own services for our own families. And so that's what I encourage you to do today. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Okay, Sue, do we have any more?
Oh, we have 5 more.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said 6 early on.
They grew.
Okay, all right. No
Next,
problem.
We have Terry Wiley.
Hi, I'm Terry Wiley, 4871 Hunters Oaks Lane, Alpharetta, Georgia. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. I wanted to introduce my son, Sean, who's agreed to stand here with me today. AYFA and now NAFL has become quite a family to all of us. I have 3 children. The first 2 graduated from Milton High School, and we're hoping that this guy gets to go there too. A little over 2 years ago, I was in bed with MS and really couldn't walk at all. One day, the doorbell kept ringing, and there was knocking at the back door. I knew it had to be Sean, who was 9 at the time. The doorbell started ringing again. Now, many of you knew Kevin, my husband, and not only did he have that big, bright smile and dancing Irish eyes, but he was Mr. Punctuality for everything except Sunday Mass. I knew in my heart that something was wrong. I slid on my bottom down the steps into the door, and there was Sean. We went into the living room and wondered where Dad was. Sean said that he would get me a drink and something to eat. All of a sudden, he screamed, "Dad, wake up." Kevin was on the floor of the kitchen in front of the dishwasher. I later was told that there had been 2 aspirins and a glass of water on the counter. If only he had made it to the aspirin and the water. That was the start of the Wileys' need for help and friends and family. Everyone came to help us. Of course, everyone's biggest concern was this little guy, Sean. Thank God for a wonderful teacher in Miss McCarthy and for sports. At the time, we were on Corey Mazur's Gold Eagles. All the parents organized and got Sean to practice and me to games. Dr. Mazur even has been taking care of our teeth ever since this all happened. The funds came to us to help us on our journey from every team, even the Roswell teams. The biggest thing that happened initially was at the funeral. All of the boys came in their jerseys and sat with their coaches. They all had lost someone important, and that being Kevin. I have been very blessed by people going out of their way for us. Some of the biggest are Rusty Reed and Jimmy French. They coached Sean and looked after him in the following 2 years and still do. They got us to and from games, and we've never wanted for a ride anywhere. Sweet Rebecca always came to pick me up and get me to the games, and that made me feel really good because I wanted to watch this little guy play. We all felt very, very loved. They even gave us a scholarship to AYFA so that Sean could play ball. But they did something more important. They taught all of these boys how to be good men. And that's really, really what we're all after, is all of our boys to be good men. Every year they had a special day for Kevin and then added the Laels. They taught the boys not to be selfish, that life was bigger than just them, and they prayed, never for a win, but for a safe team to play and a fair game. Did we want to win? Yeah, we sure did. But we didn't want to win at all costs. We wanted to do it the right way. The coaches used to always say to the boys that the coach's job was to love each of you, and your job is to love each other. And they were a really good team that way. And these men taught and continue to teach these boys these valuable lessons. I needed a lot of physical therapy to be able to walk and stand again. And Rusty Reed and AYFA got TIGTAL to give me a full scholarship so that, and Sean too, so that we could both use their facilities and their coaches, and I can walk now when I couldn't walk 2 years ago. Coach Murphy and Coach McCants especially have helped Sean and I. All of this brings me to the reason that we're here tonight. Many here in Milton have been part of this wonderful league. What we need is to stay together and have more fields to work on. We can do that with your help. More boys need this caring, and we can only do this right if we do this together, because Milton and Alpharetta go together. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next comment comes from Brandon Jacobs.
Good afternoon. Brandon Jacobs, 153 Eagles Ridge, White Columns. We've been here a long time, discussing the field space and so on and so forth. I had opportunity from Rusty Reed and Bill Weaver to come in to NAFL and create something that's really unique for this area. And I'm working with these kids. My job for these kids, or I shouldn't say job because you get paid for jobs. It's other people's jobs, but not mine. I'm volunteering. To come here and teach these kids discipline, respect, wisdom, and integrity. That's why I'm in the business of coaching youth football. I don't want to do anything else. I retired from football in 2013. I haven't missed it one bit because these kids fill that void for me. Some people retire and they roll over in bed and cry like babies because they got nothing else going, or they want to go back out there and play. Not me. My job is to coach these kids. That's what I do. That's what I love to do, and I'm going to continue doing that regardless of the outcomes. But I would really, really, highly ask you guys to consider us for those fields because our program is growing as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next comment comes from Chris Mixon.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Chris Mixon, 1815 Oak Tree Hollow, Alpharetta, Georgia. Have the pleasure of serving as an AYFA coach. Just as gratifying, I have the pleasure of serving as a board member for the North Metro Miracle League. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of people here because football is the greatest game that God ever allowed to be created. And many, many, many people in this room believe that there are things that kids can learn from playing and practicing this game that teach them things well beyond themselves. NAFL's a program that demonstrates that quality, not just with its kids enrolled in the program, but with those outside of it. The last couple of years, NAFL has, through its Miracle League All-Star Bowl, has donated tens of thousands of dollars to North Metro Miracle League, helping non-able-bodied children experience what many of these kids get to experience, the thrill of scoring a run, the joy of being on a team, the pleasure of being normal. The question before you guys is as much what's to be gained by NAFL having access to these fields. What's to be gained is an opportunity to grow our league, and specifically as it relates to North Metro Miracle League, to grow the opportunity to expand our Miracle League Bowl and provide more teams an opportunity to play in that weekend and generate more funds for North Metro Miracle League. So while I can tell you all the great things about NAFL, I really want to talk to you as a board member of North Metro Miracle League tonight. I'll read to you a quick email from our executive director who swears he has pneumonia. He may just be afraid to come into a building with a lot of policemen around. John McLaughlin emailed earlier today. He emailed Jim Craig and said, "Jim, absolutely wanted to be at tonight's meeting, but I've contracted some form of pneumonia, probably caught it at my doctor's office last week while waiting for my annual physical. I have the right meds now, but need the rest and need to avoid crowds. I feel like I have Ebola. I hope the resolution that would support an expansion of AYFA/NAFL passes. AYFA has been an important part of the Miracle League's success. They're generous in so many ways, including the Miracle League Bowl and hundreds of volunteer hours, their athletes partnering with our athletes. If it's good for them, then it's good for the North Metro Miracle League. If it's good for the North Metro Miracle League, then it's good for all the North Fulton communities that we serve. It is that circle of partnership, cooperation, and synergy that creates so many rich life experiences for all of our kids. If you have an opportunity to speak this evening, please mention the hopes of the North Metro Miracle League leadership in regard to this matter. Thanks for hearing me."
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mike Haynes. Mike Haynes.
My name is Mike Haynes, 2375 Saddle Springs Drive, Milton. I also serve on the board of the Miracle League. I tell you, Tim's got a great program. I've participated in Tim's program. He does a great job. But I can only tell you about what AYFA has done for the Miracle League. Like Chris said, they put up a game called Miracle Bowl, which provides money for the Miracle League. Miracle League shares the park with AYFA. And for years and years, their kids have been donating their time to come and be buddies for our kids. And I think that's important. So the expansion of it would only help us more. I think if it helps us, it also helps our community. So thanks for listening for me. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And our final comment this evening comes from Mr. Bill Weaver.
Bill Weaver, 1675 Everett Edge Drive. Mayor and Council, thanks again for having us here. I am really proud of this football league. And of the 40 years of success in this community that we've had, I've only been around for a couple of years of that, but all these people behind me are also equally proud of what we've built in our community and understand the importance of the game of football, as has already been mentioned. This seems to have turned into, I know we've had a lot of positive comments tonight, but sort of an us versus them. And in no way would I ever want that in this community. This community is big enough and mature enough for lots of sports programs. And at AYFA, as you can tell, and now in AFL, we are committed to safety. We're committed to doing the right thing. We're committed to helping young men mature and helping them learn the incredible life lessons that we have the opportunity to provide via this great sport. As we've gone through several of these last meetings with both council and the Parks and Recs Advisory Board, several things pop up about the declining of the league and us importing teams from other cities, and those comments then continue around our organization. As you can see, we have some people that get a little upset by those things as well. And I just want to be real clear. We are committed, as always, to this community, and this community includes the city of Alpharetta and the city of Milton. It includes the schools that we feed into, and it even includes the schools that are surrounding our two great cities. And have we seen declining numbers in our program the last 5 years? We have. We have seen declining numbers in football all over the country in the last 5 years. As a matter of fact, there's only one sport in the entire country, and that's lacrosse, that has not seen declining numbers. That's surprising, but it's primarily due to sports specialization, and we understand that. We also understand the implications of concussion awareness and safety, of which we put hundreds and hundreds of hours into the off-season, preparing ourselves to be the safest league we can possibly be. We will stay committed to that. We will continue to change and evolve our organization to fit the needs of the community, and we'll continue to grow our organization. There's been several things that have said about importing teams from other areas. We've had 3 teams now that we've formed at the select level. We've got 12U, 10U, and 8U level teams. 71% of the kids on those teams, all 3 of those teams, are made up of Milton and Alpharetta residents. The rest of the kids come from the surrounding areas of South Forsyth, Johns Creek, and Roswell. We've developed a program that is, I think, special to allow kids at all levels to have the opportunity to play football. There was also some conjecture that we had recruited a team from South Forsyth that had no City of Milton or City of Alpharetta residents. That is simply untrue. We had an organization contact us. It was coached by Coach Phil Bienamino. I've never met Mr. Bienamino. I understand he did have a conversation with Mr. Jacobs. When that finally got back to me, we
quickly declined having that program in our league. And that league now has joined with the Forsyth Central Junior feeder program, and they will be playing a North Metro Football League schedule. We're really excited about the changes that we're making this year. These changes in our organization have nothing to do with field usage or anything else. They have to do with the fact that we're trying to align more effectively with our community. We'll be aligning our teams with Alpharetta, Cambridge, and Milton high schools this year. We're very excited about that. And we're very excited about the feedback that we've got from the folks in our community and in our league about that alignment. And so I would like to say that, you know, at the beginning of all this, this was about field usage. And that's where it all started. We have 20 yards of field space per team at AYFA. That's not a lot of field space.
Right. I hate to interrupt, but we've pulled everybody else to 5 minutes. And Mr. Weaver, you're at that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who's made a comment, got up, spoke tonight. We appreciate you doing that. Okay, Sudi, is that?
That's all the public comments.
Public comment. Okay, I'll open it back up then to our presentation for Mr. Craig.
Folks, I have 3 handouts. There's enough for each of you up here. If you just want to pass them out, and here, please. Good evening, Mayor and Council. To start with, what I wanted to do is give you all a brief overview of the upcoming Bell Memorial Park, and just make sure we all understand what are the assets that we are physically talking about in regards to this discussion. You see at the north end of the park there are two rectangular fields, both of which will be synthetic turf-based fields. The planned utilization for the field number 2 on the left or west side is for lacrosse. Our boys lacrosse program started 3 years ago with 38 kids, and this spring, has topped 400 participants. And due to the excessive wear and tear that the boys lacrosse is putting on our grass fields at Cogburn Woods and over at Hopewell Middle School, it makes sense to move the lacrosse program up to one of these fields, where lacrosse has now evolved into a spring and fall sport. The field on the right, which has a number 1 on it and also has a number 7, this is the field that will be dual utilized. In the springtime, it will be known as Field 7 with a temporary fence in an arc of 200 feet around it to provide additional baseball space for the Hopewell Youth Association baseball program. From June 1st until the end of December, those temporary fences will come down and the field is available for football programming. So what we're talking about here is just this one field. Before I move on, we're all okay? All right, very good. David? Can we move on to number 2, please? The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board has put an extensive amount of time researching the 2 programs that are here tonight. This chart here is a result of their efforts to create criteria, collect data, and then this data was fact-checked with each program provider, with both representatives from the AYFA, now NAFL, as well as the Newfound Life Youth Football League. Both have put in writing that they verify that the information in this document is correct, and this was accepted by the Parks and Recreation Board at the meeting last Monday. At that meeting, the Parks and Recreation Board reviewed the data again for the third time, and they concluded by a 4-1 vote with 2 recusals to recommend to Council the selection of AYFA, now NAFL. David, could we go to number 3? When this topic was brought up at the February workshop, one of the takebacks I got from you folks was you want to see a little bit more data. So what I have done is I've put together a comparison, 6 simple pages, first showing the relative registration for each individual program. In fall of 2014, AYFA was able to offer tackle, flag, and cheerleading. NFL was not able to offer cheerleading. They offered tackle and flag programming. Based upon the data reported from both Alpharetta as well as from NFL, you can see the distribution of where the participants come from. I also, on the next page, I've compared the registrations from fall of 2013 to fall of 2014. While there is more data for AYFA dating back, in theory, 40 years, I didn't have any data to fall back further with with NFL, so I kept the two lines comparable. The next question I was asked was to try and show a supply and demand of the actual field usage. What I have proposed here is that we would break the field up into 4 30-yard practice spaces. An individual team does not need an entire football field for practicing. We can utilize these fields and assign teams individual groups of space so they can run their practices. And so this is an attempt to visualize 4 teams practicing simultaneously on the football field. Using these 4 time slots, on the next page, what I have done is I have broken out what would be a typical week during the fall season. The fall season, of course, being the predominant time when football is being practiced and games are being played. As you can see, the vast majority of it, of course, is red. The children are at school, the parents are at work. You then get into a period of time at about 5:30 that is usable. Sometimes it is difficult for people to get there due to travel. But your most desirable time is roughly a 2 to 2.5 hour window on the weeknights. Beyond that, the time is usable 8:30 and on, but recognizing that in both programs we are talking about children from 2nd grade to 5th grade. 5th grader doesn't need to be starting practice at 8:30 at night. So while the time is usable for older children, it's not desirable. So this then presents you what was called the market supply of a typical week. On the next page, I asked for and received, NFL, YFL gave me their projections for next year and how they would utilize the field. As you can see, each night they project to use that desirable time slot, roughly goal to 20, 20 to 50. In other words, half of the field would be used. The other half they would not be using because they have not grown into it. But this is based upon their projected fall 2015 registration. This then represents the market demand as projected by NFL, YFL. The final slide is the projected market demand And this is based on last year's actual registration. What we're showing here is that the AYFA program needs more than one field space, and to get their existing programming, they do require multiple fields. This past fall, they operated on 2 fields at North Park, as well as grass fields and a turf baseball field at Wills Park. If we were to partner with AYFA, we would not be meeting all their needs. We would be meeting part of their needs. Is there any questions I can answer for you?
I'll open up. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Craig on this presentation that he just shared with us? Karen?
How were their needs met last year if they can't be met with one additional field this year?
Last year, what they were doing is they were having even tighter spaces. They had 20-yard gaps, and this one provides 30-yard gaps, a little bit more space, a little bit more elbow room. They had 5 teams per field as compared to 4 teams per field.
Matt?
Is AYFA still having practice also at Wills Park?
I cannot hear you, I'm sorry.
Is AYFA still having some practices for teams at Wills Park?
AYFA still has practices currently at North Park, and Alfred accommodates them at Wills Park as well. Because they can't at all fit it at North Park.
Okay, Bill?
Looking at your previous slide.
That one, sir?
Yes, sir. Okay, you have gaps each day.
Yes, sir.
We've just spent $10 million on developing these fields here.
Yes, sir.
How can you justify having those gaps, rather? What would you do to utilize the rest of the field?
Good question. The fields themselves, currently, the NFL, YFL does not project to be needing all that, so that's why there's open gaps.
Sure.
With that space available, we could do, I have at least 2 ideas of what we could do. We could continue to make that space available, because we are talking the east field, the one that's also a baseball field. Mm-hmm. We could take the temporary fencing down and still make it available to Hopewell Baseball for allowing them to expand their practice opportunities. I wouldn't want them playing a game there, of course.
Sure.
Also, lacrosse continues to expand. And if we have the space available, either of those programs could easily take that space up.
So there's a need there for these other sports. Is that what you're saying?
There is. Hopewell Baseball has consistently been having practices where they have 2 teams share a field. So an opportunity to have a team practice individually on a field is a luxury that they have not been able to have for a number of years. And lacrosse has grown to the point that this past spring, we had to rent temporary field lights to provide additional opportunities to get the practices in that are minimum needed for each program.
My goodness.
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure, Mark.
And no offense, Jim, I think that we don't want to make sure that we're not saying that lacrosse will grow, but football will not. And I think we're looking at the numbers statically here in this field. If we were to make a selection, there's possible that any group that we have here to these fields can grow. So
I understand. I was referring to what I would be doing this fall.
Right.
Okay? As things grow, things change.
Right.
You know, programs ebb and flux. But what I would be doing, did I understand the context properly? We're talking about what I would do this fall.
Yes, sir. Yes, precisely. And I guess part and parcel of that question is we're talking about lacrosse and baseball. Those are both Milton programs.
Yes, sir.
So we'd continue to serve the expanding needs of Milton programs.
Yes, sir.
By filling in these gaps.
Yes, sir. Anybody else?
I'm going to bring up something else that's not going to surprise Jim or Chris or anybody else, but and my issue is the fact that we pay for our residents. We pay our residents out of city fees, and they pay at Alpharetta, and we do that as a city with our agreement with Alpharetta, which has worked out great for our residents. To me, one of the main things those fees cover is field construction, usage, maintenance, and all that. I have a real problem with us paying the city of Alpharetta additional fees for our residents to use the fields that our residents have already paid for with their property taxes. And I know that we've discussed working on an amendment to the agreement with Alpharetta, but I just have a real problem with us continuing to pay the non-resident fees when our residents are already paying for them themselves with their taxes. And I don't know, I was hoping that we'd have this solved before we had to make a decision on all this, because to me that's very important, because it's I don't know how much the non-resident fees are. How much is a non-resident fee for football at AYFA?
The non-resident fee for a person outside of the city of Alpharetta is 75%, but it is not based on the entire fee of the entire registration fee, because they back out of it the cost of uniforms and other equipment. Speaking without the full knowledge of Alpharetta's fee structure, I would say it's about $150 is the non-resident fee for a person to participate in an Alpharetta program.
So last year we paid $150 roughly for 200 people to pay at AYFA on their fields. So it makes sense that we would pay for our people.
Correct.
But on our fields, it doesn't make sense that we're still paying that non-resident fee.
Chris, do you want me to comment on that, or do you want to?
You can, or I'm happy to comment. I can't see Karen, unfortunately, so I don't know if she's looking at me to respond or not. There, now I can see her.
I didn't surprise you. You knew this was coming.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Excuse me. One of the things I can tell you is that with as much similarities as we have as local governments, we have a tremendous amount of differences. And one of the differences we have is how we collectively make decisions and who's authorized or empowered to offer those types of answers. I can tell you that I have met in person with my colleague in Alpharetta, who would be the city administrator, Mr. Regas, who you all are familiar with. Philosophically and conceptually, he and I came to an understanding that what was intended by that Alpharetta agreement early on was that as Milton became more whole, meaning as Milton became more in line with the number of spaces that Alpharetta had. If we recognize at the very beginning that they have, I'm going to use exaggerated numbers to prove the point, but if they had 82 fields and we had 4, as we start to bring fields online and that number, that equilibrium starts to balance, then at some point in the future, the whole need for an agreement would go away, and it would just be a Parks Without Borders situation. I can tell you that Mr. Regas, and I'm able to report that he believes philosophically that that is a correct thing to do. He said it makes sense. His recommendation, though, in the form of government that they have, because they have council members that are liaisons to each of the city departments, that we would need to reassemble the group that worked on the MOU in the first place to get a legitimate recommendation from them. And the cover that gives him, or the ability to then say he's kind of speaking with a little bit of authority, is that Councilmember Gilvin would be a part of that discussion. Probably Councilmember Coons again. He was a part of it when we talked the first time. And then we could give you, with more authority, what we believe that real number to be. So tonight I can report to you that philosophically, he and I agreed that as we bring more fields online, costs should come down. I cannot, and there was no practical way to give you by a certain number or anything definitive until that committee, if you want to call it a committee, till that working group gets back together and hashes through it.
To me, that's a very important part. And if we're talking about field usage, which is what it really kind of boils down to here, is how much time can each program have of our fields. To me, that's an important part of it. And I think we're still missing one of those variables by not having gotten those discussions done prior to us having to make a decision on this. Because I mean, we're talking about 200 kids at more than $150 probably a child. That's a pretty big number. So that we're paying for our residents to use our fields.
Okay, Matt?
If I were selected by the council to go to that meeting, I would concur. However, I think that's only applicable depending on which selection is made tonight as well. So I think, as we look at this, a lot of decisions. I mean, I spoke last time as far as this goes, and I'll just say it again. I think of all the members in the council, I've got a lot of background in football, more than most here. I mean, heck, the AJC did an article on my dad yesterday with regards to the Atlanta Falcons. Jim, I appreciate your standing there as we kind of go through all you've done. It's a lot of good work on this. I think we had a lot of people working on this. I think we've had this is our most packed city council meeting, and it's youth football, which in the grand scheme of things shows I think we're doing a lot of things right. In my perspective, I think that we have a great opportunity, though, as a council to make a cultural decision about what it is we want for the youth of our community. And as I stand here and sit here and look at what we've got before us, like in Mrs. Wiley's case, Mrs. Wiley, I understand where you're coming from. My father didn't have a dad growing up, and football was, his opportunity, and I understand that. And having coached at AYFA for 6 years, I mean, I see Ralph Clinton in the office and in the room, and in fact, the very first game we coached, we lost 24-0, and I was mad, and he was excited that we kept the game under 50. So I've seen what can happen as far as this goes. So we've got a lot of great people that have done a lot of good things here. I don't think there's a question about the integrity of both programs from what I've seen. I think that Tim Lester's group has done a phenomenal job getting started. I think AYFA has done a lot of things in the past from what I've seen. But having been involved a little bit more, I wanted to make sure that I think that, if we're going to give our residents an opportunity, that Tim Lester's group might be able to do it. I just wanted to see that it could. I think that they are from what I've seen. And, from that perspective, then I have to decide what's best for our community as far as the city goes. I would like to, as far as I'm concerned, I was elected by Milton residents. I think that as a city and a community, we have an opportunity to make a statement with regards to what it is we believe right here. And, I'm willing to give a Milton resident with a Milton program an opportunity to build that program on Milton Fields. And from where I stand, where I sit here, I think that's an opportunity for our youth as we go forward. Nothing against AYFA, great program. I know a lot of our residents are there, but I think competition is good. I think that we can still partner. I think it will not affect the AYFA agreement with the City of Milton. It's been said that agreement would go away if we selected someone else, and I don't believe that. I've talked to Bob Regis myself and need to confirm that with Jimmy Gilvin, but I think that there's an opportunity there. So the way I see things, I'd like to see, as far as our council decision go, I'm for Tim Lester's group, mainly because I see what he's done with the kids, and I see what AYFA is doing, but they're not Milton, and there's nothing against them. It's just the difference in the borders and who we are versus who they are. There's opportunity for partnerships. We still have that. If our Milton residents can't be serviced by Milton at the time, we still have the Parks and Rec agreement, so Mrs. Wiley can still continue to participate at AYFA. But I think that as that feeling of togetherness and family comes into this sport that is so difficult, that knocks every single one of these kids down on just about every single play, they have to find something inside them to get back up. That's what life is all about. That's why football teaches us life, and I think that we've got a great opportunity with someone local who's doing a great thing, and for that, he gets my support, and that's where I'm going to go tonight.
Karen.
Okay, I've got another numbers question. How many players are each of the programs expecting to have based on the field usage that they have said that they need?
I don't have specific numbers of players. On the chart for AYFA, that reflects last year's. They did not provide, nor did I ask them for, a projection for next year. They are still in their planning phase of what they're doing. It would appear, based upon the promotions on the website, that NFL is a little bit further ahead, and they were able to offer their projection that they would have the teams that are reflected on the chart here.
The reason why I'm asking is it looks like to me that the AYFA is basically 4 times the size of NFL. But if they have 2 other fields plus this new field at Bell Memorial that they're going to use, why is it that they need 6 or 7 times more field space than if NFL 360 just needs half a field space 5 days a week? The other program is 4 times as big. Why does it need 6 times as much field space if they already have 2 other fields that they can use full time? I'm having a hard time getting the numbers to work in my mind.
Well, I know the way the AYFA made it last year is they were squeezing 25% more capacity out of each field.
I'm not talking about last year. I'm talking about just this year. If you got, let's say we have 3 fields, and each field you've got, split into 4s. If NFL needs a half of a field, it needs half a field all the time, then if they have 4 times as many people, then they would just need 2 fields all the time, and they've got 3 fields, so something's not working out numbers-wise. Yeah, I mean, there's some. If they've got the full use of 3 fields, then the numbers just aren't adding up correctly, and that's what I'm trying to work. I'm sorry, y'all. You know I'm a numbers person.
I understand. I'm hoping I can explain it to the best of ability and satisfactory. As I understand it, by getting additional field space, they're spreading out a little bit and allowing for a better practice experience for the teams they have.
That's not what I'm saying, though.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that if you look at the total amount of field slots,
Right, yes.
if you've got 4 times the number of players, why do you need 6 times the number of slots?
Councilmember, let me see if I can maybe ask the question a little bit different way to see if I can bring out the answer that I think we're trying to get to here.
Okay, go ahead.
And I guess the question I've got, is there any, I guess for Jim, is there some belief that some of the programming that exists on one of those fields today in North Park will not exist any longer, and some of that programming could move to Bell Memorial Park and therefore free up some additional space in North Park for other sports programming?
And if I can also add to that, if you look at those practices that don't get scheduled, that actually represents 4 hours through the night, through the evening, and that it's really 2 hours. That's your primary time, and so the way they're showing it, to fit what they had last year, they needed more than 2 fields to do it right.
Okay, it's still not answering my question. Is why with 1/4 the players do they need less than? Does NFL need less than 1/4 of the total field? The way I'm looking at this, you've got 6 slots or 4 slots per field. Yeah.
Right.
For Bell Memorial.
Right.
Right.
But if you've got 2 other fields, then you should have a total of 12 slots at any given time. Then the numbers just are not adding up based on the number of players, unless there are a lot more players, or unless they're not going to have 2 full fields at Alpharetta. I think Chris understands where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
The number of players at AYFA, though, a lot of them are practicing at Mills Park. as well? So the actual.
So they were going to be moving from Wills Park.
Yes.
But still, that makes even more sense, though. Well, if they have 2 full fields,
If half the players are at Wells Park and half are at North Park, then what
but they have 2 full fields at North Park.
Right, so if they leave those kids there and they bring them over to Bell Memorial, then you'll have a disproportionate amount. It'll probably be about a third of the players at AYFA will come to Bell Memorial.
But something's still not
Are
adding
you
up, number
following
one.
this, Chris? And Jim, are you following
I'm
this
following it the best I
discussion
can.
between-
I think what I'm hearing is that, well, I think what I'd like to say is I do not believe, at least I've not heard to this point, that the addition of this field at Bell Memorial Park would be, no matter if either program was chosen, well, I guess to some degree, if NFL was chosen, it would be a new field for NFL. But if you decide to do some type of an agreement with AYFA or NAFL, that it's not a net new one whole field, that there are going to be players that are moving from somewhere else. And I don't know how that programming works, whether they come from Wills Park and free up some space there, or come from North Park and free up some space there. You know, Alpharetta's got just as much need for more lacrosse space as we do.
Sure.
So if you can take some programming that's existing on one of the rectangles at North Park and move it out of North Park, you just created more lacrosse space, or more soccer space, or more rectangular.
And I guess that's
field
what I'm
space.
what I'm asking, because if you look at the total number of players, you would need 4 times more field space. But unless they're moving something off of one of their existing rectangular fields, they've got twice as much field space just on Bell Memorial, plus 2 other whole new fields. 2 other fields at Alpharetta.
I understand the question. Jim, do you have any sense for that?
The sense I have is that Alpharetta desires to get football off of all of their baseball fields to allow proper recovery for the grass fields, and they're trying to consolidate. And they're trying.
But that doesn't make if you still have 2 other rectangular fields, they'll have 3 rectangular fields. If they were just being devoted to football, that would mean that you have enough fields for 6 times what NFL. 360.
Another 50%.
I believe I understand, and certainly if AYFA were to be using the one field at Bell, this would create some gaps. AYFA would have to continue to use a second field fully, and the second field at North Park would probably have gaps in that.
I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yes, there would
Are
there
they
would be
moving
gaps.
stuff off of their fields on
Yes, there would be. We'd be offloading the usage of Wills Park and some of the usage of one of the fields at North Park. It'd probably be about 2.5.
Okay, does that answer the question from your perspective? Rick, you have?
Yeah, in your discussions with Alpharetta, is the plan still to allow the same amount of space for AFYA?
If they have to, if this doesn't happen, they have to. They can't cut the program back. They can't. They're not of a mind to put a restriction on how many kids can participate.
Okay. So
They don't.
Bill, you want to make a comment on that?
It's kind of contrary then to what had been stated before then. It sounded to me like Alpharetta was moving ball field out of North Park, and we were absorbing that capacity up here in our new field.
If this were to happen, they would be taking away, based on my understandings, they would be taking away AYFA's ability to use baseball fields at Wills Park, and then when the field is being used at Bell Park, and North Park has 2 fields, 1 and 2, they would then free up a little bit of space at one of the 2 North Park fields for some additional programming of other sports that they're trying to do.
We incorporated back in 2006, and Joe and Karen and I ran at that time, and we all campaigned together, and there were 2 major issues that were discussed. Anytime I talked with practically anyone out there, One of them was traffic. People couldn't get out of their driveways or out of their subdivisions. They couldn't get down the road to school on time. But the other thing was lack of parks up here. And I understood that. And with the limited knowledge or direction that I had at the time while campaigning, I said, well, that needs to be one of our major goals, is to expand our park system. And never was it discussed at that time that we need to partner with any other organization. It was always my perception, anyways, that we were here to serve the residents and the youth of Milton. In my wildest dreams, I never thought it'd come down to something like this. And I'm sorry we're here at this point in time, but nevertheless, we are. So I think what you provided here, at least in this documentation, just reinforces the need that we need to be serving our kids up here in Milton. I think they should come first. I know both of these providers have Milton youth on them, but it seems to me like it was proposed, I guess, by maybe it was Mr. Bettis. We have to start somewhere. They're not. This organization here is not 40 years old, or what, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. I think they have a class program, just like AYFA, but I think it's coming down to the point where we've got to figure out who's going to use these fields and how effectively we're going to utilize them. I think we've provided, with a $10 million investment here, and in providing artificial turf fields, we have more flexibility in using them for different programs, different sports. But we're seeing a real uptick nationwide in lacrosse. From what I've heard, there's effort here to start cricket teams out here, cricket programs. We're only, as a city here, we're only, what, 8 years old. So now we've got two new ball fields up here. We can't expect to serve the amount of need or demand that the city of Alpharetta has down there. They have more than just 2 rectangular fields down there. Like Karen, I can't see where we need to continue to pay non-resident fees, particularly at the sacrifice of, or at the detriment of kids up here in Milton. I think we need to move forward and just look at who we need to be serving, and let's do the best we can to most effectively and efficiently utilize the fields that we have. I'm sure, I know Alpharetta has more than 2 rectangular fields down there, and it's going to take a long time for us to come on a par with Alpharetta, but it's we've got to deal with what we have here and just grow into the whole program.
Okay.
A couple of questions. Jim, either direction we go today, the other organization will continue.
Yes, either direction we go, both programs will still continue to survive because they existed this past fall without us here.
You mentioned at the, and I don't think you mentioned it today, and I apologize if you did. You mentioned the other night at the crabapple thing. When did the lacrosse program start?
It started the fall that I started here. That'd be fall 2012.
And what did it start with?
38 kids,
And what's it at now?
slightly over 400.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody, Rick?
So if I look at your analysis here, Jim, what you're telling me telling us in the one chart is you can, with half the capacity, you can fully accommodate NFL.
And there's room for growth in whatever program we choose to assign that room to. I wouldn't leave it sitting there idle.
Right.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, just
Karen?
for clarification, are we having to choose one or the other, or can we just have half the field time be used for one program, and half the field time for the other, and we'll make another decision next year based on?
That
We'll let you address that, Chris.
Yes, please, if I could. What we're looking for tonight, Council, is what's in front of you is this discussion. What's not in front of you as a part of this discussion is a contract that we would enter into with one of these program providers. It is likely that the contract that we bring forward to the council will be one that's very similarly matched to the contract we have with the Hopewell Youth Association. It is the only other program of such size, with such fees, with such demand for field space, that it will be something that will be negotiated with one of or both of these program providers. The direction I'm looking from the council tonight is to tell and give us some guidance as to who to go negotiate a contract with. That's a first place to start, and that's what I was hoping would come out of tonight, is you either say, go negotiate a contract and bring it back to us with NAFL, go negotiate a contract with NFL with that program, or go and figure out a maximum use for your field space for football, and whatever that looks like, go negotiate with both of them. A little bit more difficult to do, because there's going to be all of a sudden decisions as to what's the right priority and what's the right field space allocation. So I can tell you that the direction to negotiate with both is going to be more difficult from a on the ground doing it perspective than if you say it's crystal clear if you say go negotiate with A or B. I know what that looks like, but that's really what we're looking for tonight, and then we'll bring back to you. You know, I can't commit on behalf of either of these programs what they would agree to in a contract, so I can only tell you that we would begin those negotiations to get a contract then back in front of you as an official program provider.
Okay. Go ahead, Rick.
So you're really looking for direction on,
who do I talk to?
you would need to go from there. But I know when we started this discussion, Jim, one of the questions we had is, let's see the layout of what the usage is. Now we've got some numbers that say, well, we definitely can accommodate NFL, which is a Milton program, and we've got capacity to fill those fields with either AFYA or some other expanded program within Milton.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
But you could, although more difficult, you could do a negotiation with both programs if NFL said this is what we need the half the field, then you can negotiate that contract filled up, and then if we made the other available for AFYIA, that would then have full utilization. That's something you could work on.
It is something we could work on. I do want to highlight one thing, and I want to highlight one thing because it's great to make decisions for today, but then we've got to look out to the future.
Right.
And you know, it's one of these things where I've heard your questioning tonight when you've asked about, you know, program size at a certain point versus later in the future. You know, program that's 3 years old and what's it going to grow. So we could structure an agreement this year, yes, with 2 different programs to maximize the capacity. We will have ourselves, my guess, I can't predict the future any better than anybody else can, but my guess is we will continue to have potential issues as to how much field space is needed by 2 programs in subsequent years. And I just want to make sure that we're mindful of that when we make a decision on the front end.
Right, but this is going to be an annual, we're talking about an annual contract. This is what are we going to do this year, see how the programs go. But we're talking about, this is not a multi-year contract. We're really talking about what direction are we going to go for this year, for this year's football program.
That's a correct statement, but I do want to put you in the mindset that much like we've gotten to with an HYA, for example. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars maintained in investment accounts now with the HYA. It's to suggest to the Hopewell Youth Association that even though we update their contract every year. Some of the decisions they make on funding and programming are multi-year decisions. Because it has grown to such magnitude. I can't imagine the council would all of a sudden next January come and say, we're going a different direction with a baseball provider. So, at some point, this will be one of those programs that gets to that point as well, that it is not just a one-year contract. Even though it would be on paper a one-year contract, we would get ourselves to the mindset that we are with baseball, that that's our baseball provider, like this is our football.
Yeah, and that was more of a question for right now, because I foresee NFL is going to continue to grow. If you look at their trend just in a short period of time, I guess I'm trying to look at right now, how are we going to best serve our residents, and how do we use full utilization of fields? And I guess I'm more inclined to say, give NFL a portion of the field. That's where I'm leaning, and saying they're not asking for full, but make sure that we at least include them, so we are serving Milton with that new program.
May I add one more point?
Sure, Jim.
In addition to the example Chris Lagerman spoke of with Hopewell Baseball, I'd ask you to take a look at another partner the city has, a fairly new partner in Eagle Sticks Girls Lacrosse, currently serving over 225 girls over at Northwestern. That's a program provider that is working in partnership with the city. They maintain the fields, they take care of all the cost fees, the water expenses, maintaining the grass, and we are currently working with them on a project to expand one of the fields, and hopefully in about 2 months I'll be presenting you with a contract to modify an existing baseball field, of which Eagle Sticks would be fronting the principal volume of the cost to the tune of another $100,000 to $125,000. And this is the type of investment that partners give us when we're working with just one program partner. We don't have a contract exclusive, so to speak, but we're not cherry picking the space that's open and giving that to a competitor of their own program. They're trying to grow their own program. So if we are asked to put two competing programs together, certainly we can do that. But there would be ramifications I would have to think of in terms of how we run all of our programming. And it might affect some of our program partners' decisions and willingness to invest in the city.
Matt, go ahead.
Just a real quick procedural question, Chris. So you're looking for that direction in the form of a motion?
We would need a direction, a motion.
Because this has been so, this has been one of those that has had a difference of opinion on both sides of the topic and both sides of the matter. I really would, to protect us as we start to negotiate based upon the council's direction, I would like there to be an action of the council.
Sure.
And let me, kind of in closing, and I see everybody's comments and position and thoughts on it. The other thing I want to say is this is a really tough decision. It's all about you kids and being able to play. We got two great groups here, a bunch of kids. The good news is you're all going to keep playing. What we're really deciding here is probably which field and what times your practice are, or that's going to be up to our staff. I got to say that, per the comments with, the old AYFL, again, if we were to make the decision to go with NFL, the AYFL will still continue on and have field space. The same thing if we were to go with the NFL, or give you that direction, whether they totally filled the field space. To Rick's point, I think the only concern I would have trying to do a split decision is it's going to grow pretty quick. As we were talking, there are other sports that probably could use them. And to Chris's point, that's a tough thing to do, to put two competing teams or programs on the same space. That being said, I personally, and it's a tough decision, but for the city and our limited field space, I would prefer to go with a newer program that can grow, and that we can also use the field space for some other sports that are working, as long as we're not putting another program out of business, so to speak, which I don't believe we would be. So that being said, I would certainly support moving in the direction of NFL's program. So, Matt?
No bird.
Go ahead, Matt. I've lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, if anybody else doesn't have anything to say, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Bert, you wanna make a
Bert.
Go ahead.
Sure, okay. So I'd make a motion to provide staff with direction of selecting the Newfound Life Youth Football League, aka NFL, to do a contract with the city of Milton.
Second motion.
All right, I've got a motion from Councilmember Coons, a second from Councilmember Lusk, to direct our city to work on a contract with the NFL program for our Belmont Royal Park.
Just got one quick
discussion?
comment I remember.
All right.
You know, I would like to see both of them work together, or be able to work together in our field space. But I think, you know, as everybody else has said, or a lot of people have said, that that's just almost kicking the can down the road till next year, and it'll fester and become a bigger issue and more difficult to deal with then. So I'm supporting one group.
And one comment I want to make, I would certainly be open for our staff to work with the other program if we've got leftover field, if we've got availability in field space, that if there was some, to certainly offer it to them. But again, you guys know more how that works than I do. Okay, any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say. Bill?
Well, just a quick one. We need to look at the needs of the entire city, of all of the programs that we have, and how to serve all of the different sports out there. And I think that's what it's all about. It's all about serving the youth. And we've got to do it effectively, cost effectively, and efficiently. And until we get more field space out there, this is what we're confronted with at this point in time. So we have to make the best possible decision here that we can, given the facts that we have. I think we need to move forward, and let's get these kids on the field. Good point.
Okay, Matt?
Yeah, and just as a son of a former player and coach a lot of former, guys that actually went to coach, this game builds character, and we're all still neighbors as it is, and I hope that we, whatever happens as far as this goes, that we respect each other, play with confidence, play with sportsmanship in everything we do. And all you kids that have been here through this whole meeting, I think you definitely have achieved your civil service for the next 5 years. So thank you all for your time being here.
And I want to also say that thank you to all the parents and the kids that are out here tonight. We appreciate you being here. And again, we have to make a decision, and if it's not the one that maybe you would have liked to have heard, but keep in mind, we still support you guys 100%. We want you to play. You're all going to play. You're going to play for your programs, and we're going to be supportive of all of you. So good luck as we move forward. All right, if we hearing no more, I'm going to ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? That passes unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
They didn't get the big practice lots. All the places are 4 times as big. But they do really, there's 224 practice lots.
You guys want to take a 5-minute break?
Yeah,
and rest?
two of them here. So where are they doing the other 2 fields? Yeah. If they have 56 lots is what this program needs.
Where'd everybody go?
Yeah, makes the rest of this stuff seem incidental, right? Well, thank you, staff, for that. That's one of our toughest, between that and some of the few zoning things and, issues in the past. That's been a big deal, and I appreciate everybody working through it.
I'd rather to have been in a rezoning.
Uh-huh. Well, you know what? Bottom line, as I said earlier, at least, all these kids are going to play, and the programs are both going to survive and thrive. So, no one got hurt. So
Nobody's losing.
So. Okay. We're going to defer. Do I need to we probably need to make a motion? We've got recommendations since we don't have a quorum on item number 3. We won't have it if a couple of folks have to recuse themselves. So, I guess I don't think we'll even. Would we take a motion, or we just
need a motion to defer this item to April 13th.
Okay, and the people that would have had to recuse themselves, do they vote on this motion?
Yeah, I don't think we should make that motion.
So the problem is created, just for the record, the problem is created because we have 6 members of the elected body here tonight, 3 of which are conflicted in this matter to the point that they need to recuse from the vote, which means that there will only be 3 voting members left. Right. Which means this item needs to be heard when the entirety, or at least the 4 eligible voting members of the council are here present.
Okay, so you need a motion to defer this?
We can't even vote to defer.
Yeah, the answer is though, is if there's not even a majority to postpone it. I got to tell you though, the reality is if you can't take any action on an agenda item and you're powerless to do anything because of conflicts of interest, then I think it would be deferred by rule is the reality of it, because you otherwise, you can't take any action. So even if there's no formal vote, I think the reality is it just appears on your next agenda. And procedurally, we just take no action this evening.
In reality, we can't be doing any harm by not taking an action.
That's
and it being deferred. So
that was my fault. I did not catch that and advise the city manager.
All right. Sudi, if you will please call our next item.
Our next item is consideration of a resolution supporting an application to the Atlanta Regional Commission for funding of State Route 372, Crabapple Road, Birmingham Highway, intersection improvements. Agenda item number 15075. Mr. Carter Lucas.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Actually, these next 5 items are all related, and based on a conversation that we had at our previous meeting regarding a call for projects put out by ARC. This project, State Route 372, Crabapple at Birmingham, was one that was high on our priority list, and we were hoping to add to construction funding to bring that project up to a fully funded project based on current right-of-way acquisition costs and construction costs as estimated by Georgia DOT. The question was asked at the last meeting, what sort of funding were we looking for? And in this particular case, project costs are at $7.6 million, which is up from our original estimate of $5.4 million. So an additional 2.2 is what would be requested through this process. That breaks down to a federal match of just under $1.8 million and a local match of about $520,000 would be our share of that. We've been through the capital budget. We believe that those funds can be derived through adjustment of a couple of our capital programs, as well as relating to the next item, which is the comprehensive plan that we're asking for additional funding on. That program is currently funded in this year's budget, but if we were to receive funding from this project, we could reduce that funding and transfer that money up to the 372 project and still get as much or more under the capital comprehensive transportation plan as we would have funding it ourselves. So we've looked at a number of different funding alternatives, and we believe we have a way to do that with this 372 project, and we're asking to move forward with the application to ARC to fully fund that construction project.
Okay.
Move.
All right.
We need
Make a motion.
Okay, I'll move to approve a resolution supporting an application to the Atlanta Regional Commission for funding of SR 372 Crabapple Road /Birmingham Highway intersection improvements, agenda item number 15-075.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion for approval. The item from Councilmember Lusk. I have a second from Councilmember Morrig. Any discussion? Okay. Bill?
When could we expect an answer from ARC?
Mid-May.
Wow.
Midnight tonight?
Mid-May.
Oh, mid-May.
Mid-May.
Well, you move quickly, Carter.
Well, let's not hesitate then.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimous, Judy. If you'll please call it the next item.
The next item is consideration of a resolution supporting an application to the Atlanta Regional Commission for funding of an update to the Milton Comprehensive Transportation Plan. Agenda item number 15076. Mr. Carter Lucas.
Again, just quickly, this is the Milton CTP, the update to the CTP, which is part of and kind of a precursor to the update of the North Fulton CTP, which will occur next year. This is a project that is currently funded in this fiscal year's budget. Applying for funds under this particular program will allow us to expand that project to include some things that we wouldn't ordinarily have been able to include under a locally funded project, as well as to move some funds to the 372 project. So, important project for us this year. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Okay. Any questions on that?
What's the probability, Carter, that we would get any or all of these applications?
Probably fairly high on these first two. These would be our first two priorities that we would submit. Because the CTP is a locally funded project, or we would fund it locally if we needed to, which shows some commitment on behalf of the city. And it's tied to the North Fulton CTP, which will be updated next year too. We think that'll be a pretty strong candidate. The 372 project, because it's an existing project that we just need to fund and get up and under construction, that's also pretty high. The next few, probably the Big Creek Greenway would be the next one in the list that we'll get to, as it's going to be our third priority. And because it's got a connection and multiple jurisdictions between the CID, Alpharetta, City of Milton, all in working on that project together. That's a pretty strong application too, so I feel pretty good about the first three.
Great.
I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item 15076.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion for approval from Councilmember Hewitt, second from Councilmember Thurman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. Judy, if you will call the next item.
Our next item, 15077, was removed under consent agenda, so we move on to consideration of a resolution supporting an application to the Atlanta Regional Commission for funding of a Milton multi-use trail connection to Big Creek Greenway. Agenda item number 15078. Mr. Carter Lucas.
Again, this is a project that we've currently got going in a concept plan. It's being done in conjunction with the North Fulton CID and the City of Alpharetta. Plug for our open house tomorrow night. We've also got an open house tomorrow evening from 4:30 to 6:30 on this particular project, just to get some public input. But a project that we're finishing up the concept plan on, and it is we're looking to move this to construction here over the next 3 to 4 years, and that's looking at making some trail connections from basically Cambridge High School all the way over to the Big Creek Greenway in some form or fashion. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Okay, Mayor.
Mayor, I'll make a.
I was going to say, are you going to hold the meeting tomorrow at the Old Blind Dog so that you can get lots of input?
Let's see. Oh, do we have a captive audience over there tomorrow night, don't we?
Yeah, they may take you captive.
Yeah, all right.
Need a motion?
Okay, do I have a motion?
Sure. Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve a resolution supporting the application to the Atlanta Regional Commission for funding of the Milton Multi-Use Trail connection to Big Creek Greenway, agenda item number 15-078.
Second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion Councilmember Morag, a second by Councilmember Lusk for approval. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, Sudi, if you want to call the next item.
Next item is consideration of a resolution supporting an application to the Atlanta Regional Commission for funding of Bethany Road at Providence Road intersection improvements. Agenda item number 15 is 079. Mr. Carter Lucas.
Again, this is a project that had an initial concept study done by Fulton County prior to our incorporation. That concept study really kind of allows us to qualify this project under this funding. One of the things that we would have to do is to update that concept study if we were to be awarded this project, and it's likely that they could cut it down from a construction project just to a study to update that. But because that concept was existing, we wanted to go ahead and move forward with this project as a potential in our east-west connectivity along that Providence Road from 372, the new roundabout we built, to the concept study that we're committing local funds to at Freemanville and Providence, and then this would be the next intersection in that east-west connectivity. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, Bill?
Do you recall what the original construction budget was?
Oh, we did that thing 15 years ago, I think, initially. So there's no telling what the initial budget
In
was.
2006, it was probably roughly about $1 million, I think.
We started it probably back in 2000 when we did the first.
Roughly about,
Yeah.
My government double it negatives. No, I'm not.
We'll apply the multiplier to
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion
Make a motion.
to approve a resolution supporting an application to the Atlanta Regional Commission for funding of Bethany Road at Providence Road intersection improvements, agenda item number 15-079.
Second.
So you got a motion for approval from Councilmember Lusk, second from Councilmember Thurman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimous, Sudi.
And our final item this evening is consideration of a resolution supporting an application to the Atlanta Regional Commission for funding of a study of State Route 140, including the intersections of Ranchette Road and Green Road. Agenda item number 15080. Mr. Carter Lucas.
This is an application that we're moving forward to look at operational improvements along the 140 corridor. With the widening of the 140 corridor basically going away, and GDOT looking for some alternatives to improve the operational characteristics along that corridor. These were a couple of intersections that we thought were important that we needed to look at. They were identified in our original CTP, and we felt this was a good opportunity, good funding opportunity to go ahead and look at some potential alternatives for those two intersections. So if you have any questions on that, I'd be glad to answer them.
Questions? No, I'll
make a
comment and listen for a motion.
I'll make a comment. It's ironic that spoke before while we were talking about the football requirements here. Back in 2006, there were two major needs in the city at the time. It was parks and traffic. So I see we're addressing both of those.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item 15080.
Second.
Okay, a motion for approval from Councilmember Hewitt, second from Councilmember Coots. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, and the city, if you'll call the next item, I believe we added at our agenda.
This item was added under consent agenda. A resolution of the City of Milton, Georgia, enacting an emergency moratorium for 30 days to bar the acceptance of applications for land disturbance permits on property in the AG1, R1, R2, R2A, R3, R3A, R4A, T2 zoning district. And Mr. Ken Gerard.
Thank you, City. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this was in fact added by way of the agenda as a time-sensitive item. This is a resolution that would enact an emergency 30-day moratorium with respect to the receipt and processing of land disturbance permits in the zoning designations of AG1, R1, R2, R2A, R3, R3A, R4A, and T2 zoning districts in the city of Milton. The reason for that is because the upcoming residential conservation zoning ordinance is about to make its first appearance, and while that ordinance is winding its way through the regulatory approval process, the city of Milton, I believe, as an expression of its public policy, would like to, in fact, prevent any further land disturbance in the zoning districts that we talked about. Obviously, the conservation ordinance will have direct impact, acting almost in the form of an overlay on those zoning designations, but the concern being is once it is understood what is coming down the pike, there'll be a rush to bring these land disturbance permits in, and we would like to ensure that any future land disturbance permits are in fact consistent with the conservation ordinance that is about to go through the regulatory process, thus this moratorium. What would this do? You all have been down this path before. You know that our moratoriums typically start with a 30-day imposition. During that time, anticipating that the moratorium will take longer than 30 days, we will set up a public hearing where the public can come and comment. And if we are going to extend it longer than 30 days, you will do so after that public hearing, if you will. When does it expire? It expires by its express provision upon 30 days, obviously, unless it's renewed. If it's renewed, it's going to expire subject to the renewal terms. It will expire when you tell it to expire. If you take make a motion and second and vote to make it expire next meeting, you can do that as well. As soon as you adopt the conservation ordinance, it will expire also. This moratorium would have no effect on permits that have already been issued. Obviously, those individuals would have vested rights to act consistent with those permits having already been issued. So that is the presentation. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
And just to clarify too, anything that's already been submitted, it won't affect. And again, for anybody new that hasn't submitted something, a development or whatever, this is only in effect for 30 days or less, unless obviously the council decides to extend it. But the reality is it's in there for 30 days or less at the council's discretion.
So it doesn't.
I want to highlight as well, Council, the reason that we brought this forward tonight for your consideration, number one, is for discussion. Number two is not to suggest that you would agree to adopt this, but that you just have the opportunity to have it presented. The conservation subdivision design ordinance that the city attorney referred to is one that was brought forward previously, and then we went to do more study and more work on it. It is slated to come forward again, starting the process that it would start through as any other text amendment to the zoning code would, through the community zoning information meeting later this month. The reason that the timing is such, and the reason why we brought this forward for your consideration, is by the time it is brought forward at the CZIM, to the next time that you all are together as a council, because of this, remember, this is the time of year where we push back a week in April because of spring break. It's we're going to not be here for 3 Mondays in a row. So technically 4 Mondays or 28 days from now, it will be before this council is back seated to be able to make a decision. So there will be a good period of time from when the conservation subdivision ordinance makes its public appearance for the first time, and the time that applications could be tendered that would be in potential conflict to it because of just where it is in the process and where the next time the council will be together and meet. Does that make sense? Which is why if our interest is in holding the status quo and not having a flood of applications come in that would potentially try to beat your ultimate acting upon a conservation subdivision ordinance, this is the mechanism to do that. If you don't want to do that, if you just want to say we're fine with everything the way it is, the conservation subdivision ordinance in whatever format it comes out, if it causes a bunch of residential developments to be brought forward to get in the pipeline before that ordinance is ultimately adopted by the council or considered by the council, then there's no need for this. This would protect that status quo.
Okay. Rick?
When I read this, are we actually voting on putting this moratorium on starting now?
Correct.
Okay. And it's 30 days, then it's going to expire, you're saying, before we get a
We'll
chance
have the
to meet
opportunity,
again?
once the conservation subdivision ordinance makes its first appearance, and in CZIM, we'll get a sense.
So we could extend this if we needed to.
The way to extend it, though, is to actually publish it on an agenda with the official public hearing I don't think the city attorney would recommend we go any longer than 30 days without having that public hearing.
This is
Karen?
pretty broad. I mean, it really stops pretty much all development, residential development in the city unless the subdivision is, a particular lot has already got the thing. I would like to see if we extend it, which I think we need to, especially with some bigger subdivisions maybe possibly coming in, that we actually narrow it down after the 30 days to what would actually be impacted by a conservation subdivision. I mean, 30 days is not that big a deal, but this is pretty.
And that's
pretty
what
broad.
we did when we identified these zoning districts, is the conservation subdivision ordinance in its initial design. When it gets released later this month, you will see that it is an opportunity it has opportunity to be used in these specific zoning designations. That's why they were specifically called
But
out.
doesn't it have to have a certain number of acreage and stuff like that also for it, or is it?
Well, we don't know. I mean,
Okay.
we know what we're going to be proposing.
Okay.
But, as anything starts through a text amendment process, what goes in will be very different than what comes out.
To your point, though, Councilmember, you are correct. And if we extend it longer, what the court wants to see is that you narrowly tailor it
Right.
to the actual harm that you're attempting to abate. So yes, that will be something I will be keeping in mind as well.
Bill?
How long before that meeting do we need to advertise the fact that we're going to have another public hearing, if in fact we are? And who's going to decide between now and the next meeting if we're going to have another?
What I will typically do in these sorts of situations is I go ahead and advertise it no less than 15 days prior to the meeting in which I'm going to want you to renew it. And of course, if the council gets there and has no interest in renewing it, you can always simply not renew. But I set the stage procedurally for you to do that.
Okay. Anybody else, some questions on that? Okay, I'll open up for a motion. If you want to accept this or not.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we accept a resolution of the City of Milton, Georgia, enacting an emergency moratorium for 30 days to bar the acceptance of applications for land of service permits on property in the AG1, R1, R2, R2A, R3, R3A, R4A, T2 zoning district.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we've got a motion from Councilmember Coots, a second from Councilmember Lusk. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to reports. Is there anything council wants to report on? Not, I want to talk about, and I know it's of great interest to Councilmember Thurman. We talked about having a town hall meeting. We wanted to kind of discuss that. A lot of folks have different thoughts on it. I know we part of, it'd be good to have one soon. Chris and I have talked about maybe having several, or a couple through the year, whatever. I had suggested, Chris was looking for venues. I suggested, I kind of like, since this is Milton and we've got our new pavilion and it's spring, I'd personally rather have it in outdoors at the pavilion after the one evening, and have it a little more casual. It's one of those things where we could open it up to the public for questions and chat about things going on, as well as we can introduce our new police chief and also possibly have a first preview of the public to see some of the sketches for City Hall, for the new City Hall, and kind of get some feedback. So again, that would be my suggestion. Go ahead and have one fairly quick, or we could take care of those three items and then reconvene later. But does anybody have any thoughts on that, or like that idea or not? Or
I like it. I like it.
I told Chris I really like the idea of people submitting their questions either online or submitting their questions in writing to us at the meeting, rather than it just ending up being everybody raising their hand and, it just, so you have a little bit more control over it, and we can know what questions and make sure that the staff are prepared to answer whatever questions, and they have the information there to answer the questions that may be asked of them. But I think it's a great opportunity just to let our residents hear what's going on and ask whatever questions they want to ask.
I don't mind. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, the only thing we talked about it, the only thing that, and I think maybe we could have a blend, maybe in advertising it, we could have folks email a question in.
Right.
But I don't want it to be where people come and then don't feel like they can, you know, I still would want them to be able to ask a question if you came. I wouldn't want it to be that formal. So maybe it's something where, you know, if we advertise that you're well, you know, go ahead and send in a question if you want or whatever, then staff, and we could be prepared for probably the types of questions we'll get. But I wouldn't really want to limit it to just, you know, once you're there, because you know how people are when they get an audience and one question spawns another. I wouldn't want to, you know, cut anybody out if they had a question.
No, I think you've got to find a way to be inclusive, but also make sure we maintain control of the meeting and make sure you get a chance for everybody, not just those who are the most vocal to have their questions asked.
Yeah, I think we can manage that. I feel we've done it before. I don't think that that's a...
Well, I think with what we've got going on in the city, we could probably anticipate most of the questions, of general nature anyway. So.
Yeah, but again, you know, it certainly could be something where you could as we send something out, you know, folks could have a link or an email or somebody to, you know, info to send a question in. So
Leaning towards Tuesday, March the 31st at 6 o'clock. So Tuesday, March the 31st at 6 o'clock. You don't have to respond to that now, but that keeps us by having a town hall meeting on something other than April Fool's Day. Although that could be quite fun.
Is that the week before spring break?
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
When Karen and I talked about it, we thought it was important to try to get it in before spring break. Can't really, if we're interested in introducing our new police chief, it can't really be anything before March the 31st because that is his first day.
Okay.
I'm good that day.
Welcome to Milton.
And again, you know, the whole, and I'm welcome Karen and anybody else's comments on the having it at the pavilion versus, you know, in a building like this or a church or a meeting.
I like the idea. I mean, make use of that. Plus, you said, Joe, it's spring. It's going to be nice.
All right, I just want to make sure.
Would it take it too much of a step too far if, you know, for having it on a nice spring day in the afternoon at dinner time? That, and I'm certainly game to do it, but, you know, grill some hot dogs or something, have some food for people, and something easy like that.
Or even food trucks there.
Yeah.
We'll brainstorm tomorrow.
Yeah, the only thing I would say, I mean, I love all those ideas. We probably, I don't know that we'd want to do food trucks because number one, with the amount of space, you know, granted, you can pack a pretty good amount of people there, they can spill out, but if we make it too many other things, it may draw people away from it. And also, you know, have more crowd. You may have people that aren't even interested in just stopping for the food trucks, and then folks that are interested in questions and all, maybe we probably.
Well,
you know,
what I was thinking is you could do it and have the meeting, and then afterwards just have a community time for.
You know, I think that's a great idea. Maybe, you know, maybe we could start it at. What did you say a time?
I said 6.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe start at 6, and then, you know, if it starts to ramble on, somebody get the grill going and smell some food.
You could have city council serve.
So, okay.
Okay.
All right. Chris, you got staff updates?
The only real staff report I have is just one more follow-up on the trip to Georgia Power next Monday. I don't know that I've necessarily seen all of the replies, but
we've got
do we know who's going?
Matt, Bill, myself,
I sent one. I didn't copy everybody, but I did send it to Sarah.
So we have everybody.
I think we do have
it.
And I can't remember if he responded or not. But
okay,
I think
good.
And it's going to be 10 to 2, so it'll
That's
be
right.
just a. Okay.
That's right.
And
you know, I'll end with that tonight, and we can move into executive session. The good news is I have individual meetings with every member of council, either last week or this week, so we're staying pretty up to speed. And I know I'll see Karen, I think, tomorrow, and then Matt on Wednesday and Rick on Thursday. So
and you know how to get to my office.
We'll dive into some better detail when we're together, one-on-one. So let's, if you don't mind, we've got a quick executive session for land acquisition.
Motion to
adjourn to
executive session.
To discuss land acquisition.
Discuss land acquisition.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Warrick, a second by Councilmember Thurman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
just trying to, because the other conversation was.
All right, do I have a motion to
Motion to reconvene.
reconvene?
Second.
Third.
We have a motion and a
Aye.
second to reconvene. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, do I have a motion that we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.